Here's a word of advice. If you run some kind of, I don't know, a plumbing company in this specific example, if somebody calls you to tell you that something's wrong with one of the vehicles, don't be a fuckhead. So it's 7 a.m. the other day, and I'm driving to work, and there's this van for a plumbing company who will not be named, and they had this cabinet up on top where they had a bunch of conduit in there, but the back of it was open, and the conduit was starting to work its way out. But I didn't have a chance to get beside him and flag him down, so I just called the number, and I just looked him up on Google Maps and said, hey, you know what? This vehicle with this license plate number, they've got a cabinet open and some conduits starting to fall out. So you might want to just let them know. And they're like, okay, well, what's your name and number? And is this, and what's the address you're calling about? I'm like, I'm not calling about an address. I'm not calling to get service done. I'm calling to tell you that one of your guys has a bunch of shit that's supposed to start falling all over the road. And he's like, well, this isn't really the number to call for that. I'm like, I get that, but your office isn't open yet because it's 7 o'clock in the morning. The only thing is the 24-hour emergency line. So why don't you just hang up, call that guy, and let him know that he needs to pull over and close that cabinet? He's like, well, it's just so highly irregular. I'm not sure what to do. And I'm like, I just told you what to do. And he's like, okay, well, so before I let you go, like, what's your full name? And I'm like, it's Twos. And can you spell that? No, just, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What's your phone number? It's 2222222.
What's your name? Twos.
And
well,
then,
that's highly irregular. That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, well, I said my actual name. And then the thing about it is that
you
and then
your actual name, and you get your name is Twos from here on out. You might as well change your driver's license, your passport. Daryl says, where'd you get that beauty of a hat, Twos?
This is an absolute beauty of a hat. I was wearing it the other day when we met. So I got this from a fan of the show, a listener, a watcher. A friend of hers had made some of these hats, and she was like, hey, if you just give me your address, I'll send you one. Fuck yeah. So yeah, I was wearing this all weekend. That picture we have with Danielle Smith, I'm wearing this hat.
Is this something new? Look at the comments from Facebook. It says Facebook user, good morning, but we don't get to see who it is. What's going on here? I was just gonna say,
Facebook user.
I'm so happy that my X account is streaming again. So it's like it's back up. I'm like, oh, that's exciting because I don't have to stress about that. But now Facebook isn't going to tell us who's commenting. I'm like, well, good morning to you all. You know, Marls. I agree. P.S. I still like this intro. Eminem or not is great, but we're talking about the intro today. Are we not, Twos?
Yeah. I mean, this is probably a great segue into it.
I'm telling you right now, we got to change the intro. There's no way we can have Eminem. No, I mean, this is. We got to move away from this. And I know it's a great intro. We've been here for a long time. We've really enjoyed it. But Twos, would you not agree? We're gonna have to find something.
Yeah, I'm the one who brought it up to you. So yes, I am in agreement.
Actually, it was a listener who brought. You know how Twos is. I think I'm talking to myself here. Twos, folks, am I wrong? Twos wants to take credit for everything. He's like, oh yeah, I brought it up. I'm like, actually, no. Our listeners brought it up, and then Twos is going to take credit for what you guys talked about. That's what's happening here.
I don't know. How about this though? Good morning, Twos and Sean. Did you like shit the bed today? Regarding what? I'm not even sure, and I don't even know who asked that.
Yeah, we can't even see. It's Facebook user.
Facebook user. What? Like, okay, look, Facebook user, I understand that you're excited, but you've commented like 40 times already, Facebook user. You said, good morning, guys, Friday. Great morning. Good morning. Good morning. That is Michelle. That's Michelle. Good morning. Everybody's Facebook user.
Everybody's happy. Somebody's having a rough Friday. Welcome to Mashup 132, folks. Hopefully Friday being up this morning. It's Brenda Belanger. Well, Brenda, hello.
Here, so the X ones are still showing up. Good morning, boys. Look forward to this mashup like I do for all of them. Awesome. I love it.
Okay, but okay, going back to this, Twos is staring at comments. I want to enlist the audience to find us. It'd be cool to have somebody from Alberta, but I mean, I'd extend that to Western Canada. Can we go Western Canada, Twos? If we could find a local artist somebody who sounds badass and could give us a new intro, a submission. Is that possible for the
Yeah,
mashup?
something like a 30 or a 40-second riff so that when I'm talking about whatever's irritating me.
And it
Yep.
probably needs to be 2 minutes because Twos likes to drag on, doesn't he,
Oh,
folks?
yeah,
Doesn't
yeah,
he?
yeah. Twos drags on. Maybe if the
All
world
the
would stop
time.
pissing me off. Maybe if I call them and tell them that shit's falling out of one of their vehicles, they don't go, well, is this for residential or commercial? Like, just hang up the fucking phone and call your guy.
Okay, well, we got some things to get to today. First, of course, 6.5 for the Coots 2. Christopher Carbert, Anthony Olenek. Here's your weekly reminder that's happened. Happy Airborne Friday to Jamie Sinclair. We got some Remembrance Day stuff coming up in the articles that probably will fire Mr. Sinclair up, I think, quite a bit. But a shout out to the military boys. Happy Airborne Friday. November 26th. We're going to be doing Nova Scotia live election coverage. So if you're listening from Nova Scotia or you have suggestions for that live stream, please let us know because we want to try and fill out an evening with some people from Nova Scotia. And, that being on the other side of Canada, that could be a little bit interesting, but we'll do our best to try and find some people from Nova Scotia to talk directly to it. And if you guys can help us along the way, or you got people you listen to, et cetera, please fire those off. Finally, if you're listening
I've been waiting for you to take a breath. You finally did. Take a couple.
You know what it is?
Friday.
You know what it is? Twos left me a Red Bull in the studio.
I'm trying to fucking talk here.
And I decided to. I was like, hey, it feels right. I told you I was going to be climbing the walls today.
It's like to do a podcast with me?
Yes.
Airborne Friday. I saw this thing. I have ridden the skies in great machines, hooked up and jumped with the best of men. I have fought long and hard, and when I felt I had no energy left, I have been fired by the fear that if I stopped fighting, my comrades would die. And when I was in danger, my enemy all around, I heard the thunder from my left and my right as my life was defended. I have never been alone. I live, jump, fight, and battle to victory with the greatest assemblage of men on earth. Apparently, that is the airborne toast. So, up the Johns, guys.
That's pretty sweet. Look at Twos being all serious today. I'm the one all jumping around here. We're changing roles. Maybe you should read the headlines. Who knows?
I already know what they are, though. This one's interesting, though. Good morning,
Cooper
boys.
Troopo.
Yeah, I know.
I tell you what, Cooper, that's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll bug Cooper about it, see if he would put something together.
Yes. So, yes, we are familiar with Cooper. We did a show with him last winter.
Yeah.
And big fans.
Yeah. 100%. Okay. That is a good suggestion, though. Okay, we got lots to get to. I want to remind everybody, if you're liking what we're doing, make sure to share, like, subscribe, wherever you're at. Push this out. We are dependent on you lovely folks to help us get the word out about the mashup and everything we're doing here.
And if you're listening on Twitter or Facebook or some Rumble, go and subscribe to us on Twitter because otherwise nobody even knows we're there.
You mean YouTube?
As much as yes, on YouTube. As much as we all hate YouTube, just do us a solid.
All right. Shall we begin?
Yes, we shall.
I have a massive election. Clever. Well, I don't know. Here's the big news, folks. I think you already know. Donald Trump becoming the 47th president of the United States of America. He wins the election. And people lost their absolute mind in both ways. Lots of excitement and a lot of like, you bunch of racists. I can't believe this happened. And all the celebrities losing their minds and everything else.
Well, I mean, think about how fast things moved. Like, since our last mashup last week, there's Peanut the Squirrel.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't even have a chance to talk about that, and it's not even news anymore. And now we're going with the election results. But you're absolutely right. There were a lot of celebrities who have just lost their goddamn mind, and it's hilarious to watch. Like, here, I'm not going to play this, but just take a look. That is Kathy Griffin. And she looks like she has been smoking peyote for 3 straight days. She does not look good, folks. All right. You got Christina Applegate. This guy says the problem is women can't think straight 1 week of the month, and that's not good for a president, and the American people know that. Interesting thought. I don't think we have time to get into it. We'll just move past it. Christina Applegate. Married with children. This chick says, are you fucking kidding me? Get on the phone now. Give me your number. And then it blew up with a whole bunch of guys giving her their numbers because it's Christina Applegate. Like you had Wayne Gretzky going to Trump's election night thing as being a big deal. One of the things you had Catherine McKenna, which is funny. Okay, so one of the several notable things about Trump.
Can we just say about Wayne Gretzky? Can we just say about Wayne Gretzky quick?
Yeah, sure.
He does. Oh, yeah, I get to hop in for 2 seconds here. You're rambling, all right? 2 seconds here. Wayne Gretzky does the vaccine commercial, and now he's hailed as a hero because he went to Mar-a-Lago for Trump's election night victory party. But, like, folks, don't forget in the pictures, Kim Kardashian's there. And then the same week, Kim Kardashian was at the photos were arriving that she was at P. Diddy's parties. And it's like, whatever.
I don't know. Was Wayne ever at those parties?
Possibly.
Catherine McKenna. So Trump's last presidency was notable in a few ways. One of them being that the United States greenhouse gas emissions declined over his tenure. Now, Catherine McKenna, the climate idiot herself, it really sucks, but we need to pick ourselves up, come together, and double down on climate action and activism, including working harder to bring regular people in the fight, especially women and girls who are 2.5x to demand climate action. Stay tuned. Trump, lower greenhouse gas emissions. I get the fact that you hate him, but let's try and keep it factual. CBC made the news for being a bunch of idiots. And I don't even know, like we did the live stream and it was way more successful than I thought it was going to be. But why the hell was anybody watching us? Thank you if you did. But why the hell were you watching us when this would have been way more entertaining? This clip's minutes long. I'm not going to get into it, but it's funny. And the other thing is people have been looking at this graph.
Yes.
Blue is the Democrat votes. And they're pretty straight, except for in 2020 when they jumped a huge amount. And there's a bunch of people on the Democrat side saying, well, how the hell did we get so many votes the last election and none of them this time? Obviously, there's some fuckery with the election. And it's funny because they're like this close to figuring it out, but they're just not quite there. This is the best breakdown. This is the best mental breakdown of anybody.
Okay, with the video.
Just watch this.
I can't believe Trump's actually going to win this fucking thing. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm so pissed off. Fuck. God damn it.
That white Harris for dudes.
Fucking money.
White dudes for Harris. I mean,
white dudes for Harris. This clip, it's about a minute long. I just need everybody to listen. This is they used AI voice software to take out the word democracy and put in the word bureaucracy in this supercut. Just
if the Democrats fail, it might be the end of American bureaucracy.
Our bureaucracy really is in fundamental peril.
The foundations of American bureaucracy under attack. They want to destroy our bureaucracy.
We are a bureaucracy in danger.
We're watching an election where people are on the ballot openly advocating the end of bureaucracy.
That's what Republicans are doing, attacking bureaucracy, attempting to destroy bureaucracy, and they're doing it with glee.
This is the end of bureaucracy in America.
When will America stop sleepwalking towards the end of bureaucracy?
Right. It's Democrats versus, as Bill Kristol says, the end of bureaucracy.
We are essentially, as Neil put it, one vote away from sort of the end of bureaucracy as we know it.
I think our bureaucracy and the stability of that bureaucracy is really the thing on the ballot and really so important.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
It was just absolutely beautiful. And Maxim magazine, being the only magazine that endorsed Trump. Man.
And I want to pull up this one because it says people saying Harris should have done Joe Rogan are missing the point. That wouldn't have helped her. Liberals need to build their own Joe Rogan. And the guy commented, liberals actually had their own Joe Rogan for years. His name was Joe Rogan. And I'm
Totally
like,
true.
that's
you know
that's
what?
a great tweet.
I bet you they're gonna go on his podcast the next fucking time. People are starting to realize this, right? Like, I don't think Joe Rogan was the deciding factor in this election, but it's not, oh, did you get on 60 Minutes? Or, oh, did you get on CNN? It's, did you get on a big podcast? And the election cycles in Canada are going to be the same thing. Sean, your phone's going to be blowing up. People you've never even heard of. Be like, hi, I work for Pierre Polyev, and I'm wondering if I could come on to we could get him to come onto your program and talk about some snappy slogans and minimal actual change. Do you have any softballs you could throw at us? The cool thing about it, though, is that it's going to get to the point where actually you're going to have like the NDP saying, yeah, you know what, we'd actually like to come on your show. Not the mashup, but, we want to come on the show and talk about things. And so, yeah, the tides, they are turning.
Yes, they are. Ripples in a pond. When Donald Trump vowed to clamp down on immigration as part of his campaign for president of the United States, the RCMP was listening closely. Not just us two yahoos, and a few of you out there too, but they were listening closely to what Donald Trump had to say. Canada's federal police force has been preparing for months on a contingency plan for a potential massive influx of migrants across the border following Trump's promise of mass deportation of millions of undocumented immigrants. And if a surge materializes, the Mounties expect it to take place before Trump's inauguration in January.
So the RCMP is all worried that our borders are going to get flooded with asylum seekers. I just throwing ideas out there, crazy pitch, hear me out. What if we just stopped them before they crossed the border? What if we just didn't let them into the country? They already entered another country illegally. We should just let them enter this country illegally? Be like, no. Back up. Take 10 steps back, or you may get shot. The lineup's over there. You can fill out the paperwork on your way through. That's it. Why do we have an obligation to look after people who left whatever country they're from to enter another country illegally? And when that country says, no, you need to go back, they say, well, what if we just went to Canada and got free shit forever instead? How is that in any way a normal idea? Jesus Christ. Let's go to the next thing.
AGM.
Yeah, the AGM.
Members of Alberta's governing United Conservative Party have voted their strong confidence in party leader Premier Danielle Smith, with 91.5% of voting members endorsing her leadership. We were there, twos. We saw it firsthand.
Can we just take a moment or two to explain to those who weren't there how awesome it was to have so many people come to the hospitality suite we put on, and how great it was to talk to everybody,
To
and
meet
how
a
much
whole
we
bunch of these
appreciate
people.
it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was the first AGM I've ever been to. I was
Me as
shocked
well.
at how it was an absolute zoo there. 6,000 people. It felt, I don't know. It was buzzing. It was busy. And Friday night we had the hospitality room, and
We ran a lineup.
yeah, it was jarred. And when the premier showed up, the security detail had to like push people out of the way to kind of create a little pocket for her to come stand in. So really appreciate everybody who showed up. There was a ton of people come
Very
through.
much
It was great to meet so many of you. And I'll give credit where credit's due here. This was a two's idea. I like to shit on him a lot, but this was a two's idea to try and
Twos just likes to take credit for all the ideas.
You do like to take credit for all the ideas. I'm trying to be nice here, and you're gonna make a point of it. That's fine. It's fine. It'll be the last time. It was a two's idea, and seeing all you lovely people come through and get to shake hands and meet some of you guys and gals was a cool. Honestly, it was
very.
It was worthwhile. Yeah.
So thank you so much for that. Well, and it's funny, even like I got a text from Zane. and he was like looking good, buddy. I didn't even see him there. I didn't even have a chance to talk to him, but I did get 30 seconds on the big screen to several rounds of applause, which was great.
Yeah. Talking about the Alberta Bill of Rights.
All I did was just say that maybe we should have some good laws in place so we don't have to trust the people in charge. Although the biggest round of applause by far was the guy who said that that Alberta needs to separate.
Yes.
When the
that
biggest
was it.
round of applause the entire weekend, probably including the whole leadership results. Well, maybe not.
I'll say this. I think everybody in that building, including Danielle Smith, was shocked. And I don't use that word lightly, that she got 91.5%. I think everybody, I think a healthy majority of us thought she would get around 80%, I would say. My number was 78. I heard 87. I heard 76, but relative in that range. Nobody had 90s. I was just, I think all of us were a little bit floored at 91.5%. That's a pretty clear indication from the membership of what they thought of Danielle Smith.
Or maybe they were just too scared to present another alternative. But maybe that's just me.
I don't think so.
I think it's a well, okay. Here's the thing: is the difference between 92 and 87%. I think there was definitely some people who were like, well, because I talked to them. They're like, well, yeah, we don't really like it, but seriously, do we need another leader at this point? They're like,
sure.
Okay, well, we'll just give her a carte blanche forever then. But
it was fun. We will be back next AGM, which I hear is in Edmonton, right? We heard that there, right? The next AGM is going to be in Edmonton.
I don't know.
I want to say it's going to be in Edmonton. I think that's what they said.
I don't know if I want to go to an event bad enough to do it in Edmonton.
I know. I thought the same thing when I'm like, Edmonton, come on. But if it's there, we'll plan to be there. So, twos, what do we got next? Update BC election. Okay, Election BC says it has discovered that a ballot box containing 861 votes wasn't counted in the recent provincial election, as well as other mistakes, including 14 votes going unreported in a crucial riding narrowly won by the NDP. You might wonder why 14 votes matters, because the guy won by like 24 votes, right? That's how tight it was. This review, which started last Wednesday and ended Sunday, identified what the statement describes as data entry omissions that resulted in mistakes in the vote counts in 69 of the province's 93 ridings. That is a bad luck.
69 ridings.
Yes.
Okay, so here our elections are 100% fair and balanced. There's never anything fucky. We were talking about it as it was unfolding in the live stream. We're like, oh, they said that due to the inclement weather, people shouldn't go out and vote. And like right off the bat, there was that. And then there was the power outages. And it wasn't power outages. It was just like, oh, this building lost power. The building where we're counting the ballots in doesn't have any power in. This is so weird. This never happens except once every 4 years. And then the whole like, well, we got a lot of mail-in and phone-in ballots. And the things that make you go, keep piling up. And I haven't seen anything that makes me think, oh, right there, that's the smoking gun. But I hate that they're normalizing this shit. Because if it's just a whole bunch of hand ballots, nobody leaves the room till they're all counted. Everything's done, figured out. We all know what's going on. We all go home. But when this shit keeps happening on and on and on again, then if and when you see something that seems illegitimate, you point it out, and they're like, oh, well, shit like that happens all the time. And that's exactly it. Shit like this should not happen at all, bar none.
They're eroding election integrity.
Keep it simple. Okay? Don't normalize fuckery in elections. Okay? This isn't Venezuela. All right. And yeah, are you guys gonna run like for office?
No. Office? No.
No. So my primary reason for going was to support her. Are you guys going to run?
My goal of starting a podcast wasn't to become a politician. It was to try and I don't know.
Talk about sports.
Yeah, and now it's evolved into trying to hold politicians accountable and talk to the issues we see. I don't want to be. As soon as you get into becoming UCP, you're going to be how many? I can't give any names, but one of the things I found interesting about the UCP AGM, I talked to a lot of people, some that are currently in government. some that have differing thoughts, but they're not allowed to say them. That's their words, not mine. And I'm like, oh, well, we get to come on here and be who we are. And as soon as you sign up and become that,
You toe the line or you get out.
Kalen Ford, one, right? Like
Drew Barnes.
I mean, Nadine Wellwood, by all accounts, right? Her story, that's one of the latest ones. You know, you can love or hate the woman, but that's the story. So you're like, I probably wouldn't fit that well. Who knows?
Yeah, well,
Maybe
that's the nice thing is we're not going to kick ourselves off our own show.
Hopefully not.
I don't know. You keep slamming those Red Bulls that interrupted all the time. If I think about it, but yeah, a few people in the comments saying it is Edmonton, or in this case, fucking Edmonton, which is pretty accurate.
How do you do, fellow extremists? The RCMP is planning to conduct undercover surveillance online using fake personas to investigate ideological extremists in Canada, says an internal strategy document. Experts in ideologically motivated violent extremism, IMVE, in Canada say that the strategy is overdue at a time when online extremism threatens to spill over to the real-world violence. The warning that extremist activity in Canada could increase in the wake of the U.S. election. The term IMVE can cover anything from white supremacists and neo-Nazis to the far-left environmental and animal rights organizations.
I mean, imagine if this stuff actually does start manifesting in real life. You know, what if these ideologically motivated violent extremists start burning down places of worship or having mass protests that they're throwing around smoke bombs and assaulting the people on the other side of it along racial lines? Like, what if that starts happening in real life? I mean, just imagine like how much of a pressure cooker it is to have people saying what they think on the internet when it bears the very real possibility of turning into 100 burned down churches. That's obviously what they need to be focusing on. Because imagine if that were to happen.
I can't imagine.
Somebody says, because it's just Facebook user, look at what's happening in Brampton, Ontario. Imagine going back in time 10 years and saying that if you fucks vote Justin Trudeau in, the Indian Civil War will be taking place in Brampton, Ontario.
Will erupt in Brampton, Ontario.
Like India, that giant at the top of the Indian Ocean, that giant country with 1 billion people. They will have a civil war if you vote for Justin Trudeau, and it will take place in Brampton, Ontario.
Two's new conspiracy theory. Well, folks, everybody buckle up here because I've got to all the conservatives in Canada who claim that the global demand for EVs is declining. And then there's a chart.
So this is Ryan Turnbull, Liberal member of Parliament, and he's pointing out that the global demand for EVs as a share of total vehicle sales is increasing. Now, interesting thing is he based this on this place, the IEA 50 global electric car stock between 2013 and 2023. And you notice it's going up exponentially. It's crazy how fast this is increasing. And what are the really big numbers at the bottom of them? Excuse me. Well, let's take a closer look. Well, almost half of them are battery-powered electric vehicles in China, and another very large subset of this is plug-in hybrid electric vehicles in China. In fact, they constitute a little over half. Now, the country that no one's really allowed to freely come and go in and out of without worrying about being detained at a fucking jail for 3 years, where they don't have a free press, where the people aren't allowed to publicly talk about what's going on. The one where they made a bunch of fake videos where they were welding people's doors shut at the start of a pandemic to scare everybody. According to their company's data, which every company in China has to be at least 50% owned by the government, According to the data released by these companies, China is over half of the global demand for EVs. Now, this is also the same country where almost every single fucking battery for an EV gets manufactured. Now, call me crazy, call me tinfoil hat, but you've got this closed black box that makes all the batteries for these fucking things. And they're saying, well, global demand is on the rise because we're buying all of them. Are they? Are they even making them? Or are they fudging the numbers so that the companies owned by Chinese government fudging the numbers on sales so that the companies owned by Chinese government who make batteries can sell them to companies owned by whoever the fuck that gets billions of dollars in subsidies from their local governments, i.e. Canada, which can then be spent on batteries in fucking China.
Are you saying the
I'm
mashup
saying,
it takes a flight? Go talk to
well, it
some
would be one way. And
go
then
talk
we'd
to
be,
some Chinamen?
Chinaman is not the preferred nomenclature.
I don't know. Isn't it?
All I'm saying is that it's suspicious as fuck. It's just a little bit too goddamn convenient, especially when they have a track record for fuckery.
UCP aims high. The Alberta government on Thursday dismissed the CEO and the board at Alberta's Investment Management Corporation, citing displeasure with increasingly high costs and reliance on third parties. 3 other executives have also departed the provincial pension plan. Finance Minister Nate Horner confirmed Thursday afternoon the changes were made to restore trust in the Edmonton-based Crown Corporation, an institutional investor responsible for managing several public funds and pensions. The province said AIMCO has seen significant increases in operating costs and fees alongside returns on investments that have not corresponded with the cost increases the province had added.
So this thing, they basically have spent, so they went from 129.7 million in 2019 to 222.3, which is just a little bit too much as far as I'm concerned, in 2023. And over that time, they went from managing 82% of the funds internally to managing only 67% of the funds internally. So they're outsourcing almost half, well, 2/3 of it right now. They're outsourcing 2/3 of it. And during that time, in the last 4 years, their annual costs have gone up 71%. In a day and age where you could just diversify across a bunch of ETFs that basically use the couch potato strategy, and you're going to get the best return on investment based on what's happening in the stock market. You could literally take any half decent, halfway smart person. It doesn't even need to be a professional money manager. You just say, we're going to buy a bunch of ETFs. You pay them 100, maybe 150 grand a year because it's cushy government employment. And you got to give them lots of money. Instead of $222.3 million, you could get that down to 200 grand a year.
I'm going to try and get Nate Horner on. That's what I'm going to try and do.
I met him at Shane's fundraiser there that I AMC'd a couple years ago. Pretty good dude. I liked him.
I've been hearing a lot of that lately. Now, once again, haven't met him, so until that happens, we'll see what we can pull off.
If only you were in the same room as him recently. Maybe you could have gone and talked to him.
It's fair. It's fair. Remembrance Day retardation. Well, a Halifax school, elementary school that is, under fire for telling veterans and soldiers to ditch their uniforms for its Remembrance Day service, has walked back its ask. Sackville Heights Elementary School, which is located in the Halifax suburb of Lower Sackville, made the request in a November newsletter to the community. It is said that given the diverse makeup of our school community and being responsive to our students, any current and former members of the Canadian Armed Forces who plan to attend the school's Remembrance Day service should consider leaving their uniforms at home. They commented after they were our school is extremely diverse, and some students who have come from countries experiencing conflict have expressed discomfort with images of war, which included those of individuals in military uniforms.
First off, before we get into this, two things. One, I have bought like 4 or 5 poppies this year. I'm sorry, I'm not wearing one today. They keep falling out, and you guys need to get the ones with the buttons as just the mainstream standalone standard ones. Okay? Just the pins that come out. Can we stop doing those? Please. Secondly, let's take a minute to appreciate the fact that this is in a place called Lower Sackville. And Sean's going to agree with me. Yep. There you
sure.
go.
Yep, there you go. I just thought, I'm like, why didn't I put it on? Sitting on my jacket, it goes everywhere. And I agree too. The ones with the back would be like 1,000 times better. It must be cost. That's got to be what it is, right?
Okay, but I would rather look at the amount of money that because I put $5 in there every time.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. Maybe that's how they make more money. Although I did see a guy at the hotel last weekend go up, grab a poppy without putting any money in.
Without putting any money in?
And I was so shocked. It took me a minute to register. And then he was already, but it was just like, did he just, and he was already gone before I could even, you're so flummoxed by something. You're like, did I just fucking see that? Okay. And then now you got this shit where they want people who go to the Remembrance Day ceremony, actual veterans, to just
not
show
trigger
up
people
in their civvies.
Yeah. It's
because it's not gonna,
yeah.
If you're deployed somewhere, you're not wearing your dress uniform when you're going around defending freedom.
The further we get away from war twos, the less people understand what Remembrance Day signifies and what the men in uniform signify. And so they're like, oh, they could just show up and be dressed in civilian clothes. You're like, are you serious? Are you serious? That's an insane thought. But that is the thought of our world now, because we're
because they might trigger some people
yes.
who came from war-torn places.
Correct.
Motherfucker. If anything, you should be like, oh, if you came from a war-torn place and you see a Canadian soldier in uniform, that's not like when you see a cop car and you're like, oh shit, am I speeding? That's like, oh, thank fuck the cavalry's here. You're like, it's so good to see you guys. And if you're being taught that isn't the case, you're being taught fucking wrong. We reached out to, and by we, I mean me, because it was my idea, reached out to the principal of this school to see if she wanted to comment on it or if she wanted to come on today and speak to it and maybe just help us explain how fucking ass backwards this is. But did not receive a response, sadly.
The goofy news. Gen Alpha keeps tripping and falling over their own Crocs. So we go from wear civilian clothes to tripping over Crocs. So schools are banning shoes over safety concerns. These are dozens of schools across more than 12 states have implemented a Croc ban. And if you're wondering what a Gen Alpha is, that's kids born in 2010 and onward. And then Peanut the squirrel decapitated. I think, Two's mentioned it earlier on, but Peanut's grieving owner, Mark Longo, told the Post he's planning a lawsuit against the State Department of Environmental Conservation after they raided his home, took the squirrel away, and euthanized it for tests for rabies. Yeah, that's going on. And then,
just real quick about the squirrel.
Sure.
Everybody blew up about it. But here's a take I thought was really good. This isn't me. Why is the squirrel so important? Because when government will invade your home and kill your pets, it suddenly feels real to average Americans. Insert Canadians here. It brings the horror of being under the boot of tyrants to life. This straw may be the one that breaks the back of tyrannical government overreach and those who practice its evil. So be it. True liberty. Sic semper tyrannis.
Yeah, well put. The final goofy news is North Korean soldiers hooked on porn after getting internet access for the first time while helping Russia fight Ukraine. We talked about this. You remember when we talked about this with them taking the Starlink, I want to say, out to some tribes that had never experienced.
Yeah,
and then
they took these uncontacted tribes. They gave them Starlink, and then
they started watching porn.
Collapsed because all they wanted to do was sit around and watch porn all the time. Well, apparently North Korea, which is the next best thing to an uncontacted tribe at this point. Isn't it funny how you draw a line right down the middle of the country? You give one side communism, one side capitalism, check in 50 laters and see which one still has the lights on. Anyways, these poor saps in North Korea that are being sent to help out Russia, they get out of North Korea for the first time, and they're like, oh, there's this magical device that you carry around in your pocket, and you can just look at anything and like, oh, well, you could see boobs on it. And then like the mortars are going off all around them, guns firing, and they're just sitting there like, boobs, 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 boobs. Men are simple creatures. And it's nice to know that even in a place as ass backwards as North Korea, we're really not all that different.
The censorship has sailed. Danger Cat show was canceled in Peace River. And we're not going to bring up the video because the video was about 7 minutes long. But it was an interesting town council where basically, you know, they cited a bunch of things, but the mayor didn't even know who, you know, had never been to, didn't know anything about the Danger Cats.
Just heard it was evil, racist, misogynist, and said, we're not going to have that here. Meanwhile, in this small town that, I mean, no offense to them, but I imagine they probably have a difficult time getting a lot of shows and whatnot to come through town because it's kind of out of the way. Like you just drive all the way to GP and then just go north for 45 minutes, right? Like it's not on the way to much of anything with the exception of Anchorage. Actually, it's not even on the way to Anchorage. And so, you know, they got this show. These guys want to show up and do a show. No, we're not interested. Like, that's going to do great stuff for the economy, Mayor. And in Peace River of all places, why not have somebody who just says, well, I mean, like it was said in the video, like if you don't like it, you don't have
show
to
up.
go, and that's it. Right? What would be a better message to send to somebody who's going to spend money booking a venue, staying at a hotel, all the gas there and back, their food, their time, their effort, to book a place and have nobody show up? But you have to take the chance that it'll be good and people are going to enjoy it. And if it is good and people are going to enjoy it, you win either way. So here, show rescheduled for Berwyn. Activists are calling that establishment now and calling the owner racist. Shout out to Wayne Larson from Mother Truckers for standing up to censorship. Being called racist is completely irrelevant at this point. So if anybody listening is worried about being called racist, don't. It's totally meaningless. Like, what if I care about the economy? Racist. What if I think that we shouldn't cut the dicks off of preteen children? Racist. It never ends. And you know what? Actually, from like a fiscal standpoint, it does make more sense given the fact that the government pays for the dick cutoffs regardless of the age of the person. From a fiscal standpoint, it makes a little bit more sense to cut them off when they're still smaller. But that doesn't make it right. And so even me, who's just a staunch, whatever's the cheapest way possible, that's what the government should do. Not in this case. But that makes me a racist. Okay, fine, whatever. Let's talk about cutting dicks off.
Transgender sports updates. Boise State women's volleyball team has already informed San Jose State that it plans to forfeit the second match between the two schools scheduled for November 21st. The Broncos were the first Mountain West school to forfeit a match against the Spartans due to the presence of a transgender player, Blair Fleming. And just to give you a point of why this is important, is they're sitting in sixth spot, could use the win.
It doesn't matter where they're sitting.
Fair enough, but just
because this will continue until everybody just says, if you've got a transgender, we're not going to play anymore.
Sure, tease.
All right. The second thing is Algerian boxer Imani It's even in his name. Khalif has XY chromosomes and testicles. His medical reports show that he has XY chromosomes, male testosterone levels, testicles, and a micropenis. This is the guy who won the gold medal in boxing. Now, I don't know about you folks, but I didn't need a medical report to know that guy has a micropenis.
Emissions cap is emissions crap. The federal government unveiled draft regulations Monday that will impose a greenhouse gas cap on oil and gas sector that limits emissions to 35% below 2019 levels. Canada's oil and gas sector, which is responsible for nearly a third of Canada's greenhouse gas emissions, will have 4 years to phase in that reduction. Premier Danielle Smith launched a blazing attack on Ottawa Monday after the feds finally announced this. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has a deranged vendetta against Alberta, she said. And whenever the provinces tries to negotiate, she added, they hammer you on the head when your back is turned.
That's fair and accurate. I think, I don't know, as far as I'm concerned here, and you can tell me I'm wrong at any point, and I'll just talk over you. But
seems to be the way today's going, isn't it, folks? Hey, supposedly I'm the one that talks too much. Carry on, Twos. Carry on. Let's hear what Twos has to say.
If
today.
they actually cared about greenhouse gas emissions, they would just make it blanket. They would say that transport and manufacturing and every industry and the individuals need to reduce their emissions by 30%. If saving the environment is the most important thing you can possibly care about, why are you handpicking one industry out of all of them to reduce by 30%? Why not reduce them all? And as you get more and more reductions, each subsequent one is going to get harder. It would probably be a lot easier to, if you need a certain amount reduced, which is that 30% of oil and gas sector, if you spread that out across all industries, it would be much easier for each individual industry to find the little savings here and there if that's what was super important. But if you're a party that is down 20 points in the polls, your almost entire caucus is facing annihilation in the next election, which could come at any fucking time. And the only time you have ever had an uptick in the polls in the past decade has been when you've been picking fights with people. You're going to go to Old Faithful, which in this case, for once, is not abortion. It's federal government versus Alberta. So hopefully Danielle Smith, I don't know, maybe you're a fan of the show now after we met last weekend. If you're listening, this is bait. As much as it would be just beautiful to encourage all the oil and gas producers in Alberta to say, we don't want to work with hostile foreign governments anymore, including fucking Ontario. As much as that would be nice to do, you need to push back on this without being antagonistic. As much as I love the all-out guns blazing, fuck you liberals, that's not the right strategy right here, because they're going to try and make you look like the bad guy for punching them back. They're trying to instigate a penalty right now, and don't fall for it. Sean, am I wrong?
I was just thinking about when I introduced you to the premier and we took a picture and Twos didn't smile. That's what I was thinking of. You're not wrong. There's lots of what you said there. Whether or not the premier takes any of your advice, who knows?
Fair enough. Buzz me and we'll move on.
Reservations about the other Randy. Okay, everybody buckle up. I want to read a bunch of this.
Yeah.
Okay. We're talking about Randy Boissonnault, the guy who is the other Randy, right? A company that belonged to Federal Employment Minister Randy Boissonnault said it was Indigenous owned while bidding on federal contracts. While Boissonnault, who at the time co-owned Global Health Imports, he said in the past that he is Indigenous, he recently stated publicly that he is white. Quoted, Global Health is wholly owned Indigenous and an LGBTQ company. Boissonnault's former business partner, Stephen Anderson, has specified in June 2020 bid by Global Health Imports Cooperation for a contract to supply face masks. National Post obtained the bid through an access to information request. Anderson repeated the statement in a follow-up message to Public Services and Procurement Canada and called the company Aboriginal twice when submitting another bid to supply face shields.
Isn't it weird that the liberals who pushed face masks so hard had companies that supplied face masks?
To qualify as an Indigenous supplier, GHI, that's their company, needed to be at least 51% owned by people who are citizens of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit communities, or a member of a group affiliated with the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples, which represents Indigenous people living off reserve. Indigenous suppliers must also register on an official list. When National Post asked Indigenous Services Canada about GHI's application, a spokesperson replied that the startup never completed it. Since Boissonnault and Anderson split the company ownership 50-50, both would have to be Indigenous for GHI to meet the program's criteria. Are we getting the point here? Are
Yeah.
we?
Yep. So,
and in 2021, he told, this is Boissonnault, Randy, told Extra, an online LGBTQ magazine, that he was a white, cisgendered member of the community. It just
it's funny
keeps
because
getting...
now apparently he's gay. And if you saw the videos of Steven Anderson, he is definitely gay. So this whole thing is gay and retarded. And we can say that now because Trump won. So not only is the other Randy is native now.
Yes. You think this story couldn't get worse? It just or better, or whatever you want to call it. It
So
just keeps going down and down, and there's more layers to this thing.
He abandoned his 50% stake in a multi-million-dollar company. There was arson that burned down the warehouse after they were facing a half dozen legal suits from various companies that they were supposed to be working with. He apparently used his when he was supposed to no longer be acting director of this company, he was still involved in it despite being a cabinet minister. And now it turns out he lied about being native
on the
to help
application.
get government contracts.
Correct. Yes. Like the deeper you dig into this guy's a piece of work.
Like,
I mean,
just pie in the sky. What else could this company have been doing aside from sweatshop labor? Do you think that, I don't know, like how greasier could this company possibly be at this point? You know what I mean? Like, he checks every box, and instead of the liberal thing about diversity, it checks every single box about being unscrupulous, dishonest, and a complete fucking fuckwad, while somehow still managing to not go to fucking jail. All right, we got a bunch of comments to catch up on. Isn't identifying as native the 2S plus part of the Rainbow Crew? Yeah, it's the 2S part, but not every native is 2S, but apparently all 2S, Two-Spirit. Here's the thing, is the rules are so nebulous and all over the place that nobody even really knows for sure. Not even them. And that's the way they like it, because they can just say whatever they want, like this.
The NDP is not a serious party. This is a Western Standard article. It says, it's fair to ask what's happening with Nenshi. He dominated the party's leadership race in June, securing 62,000 plus votes. His competitors got only 10,000 combined. His margin of victory has been characterized as unprecedented in recent Canadian politics. Nenshi is not only absent, though, from the front bench of the legislature, and the back bench for that matter, but he has no bench at all. He's watching the new legislative session from the public gallery like any other Albertan could do if they wanted to waste their time and have no vote. Now, Nenshi has seldom shied away from speaking out. He must demonstrate now, first to his caucus, then to Albertans, that he is the leader of the province's official opposition. That entails winning a seat in legislature, which he hasn't done.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about you two.
No plans.
No plans. Very interesting.
Well, I mean, it's tricky because you've got this double-edged sword with Calgary where, yeah, that's his stronghold, but he resigned from being mayor, citing racism despite the fact that he won 3 terms. He said he wasn't going to get in next time because of racism. And it was because he was an asshole. He was just an absolute douchebag, and he did a lot of greasy shit. And so he's not well thought of in his stronghold. It's just that he's a really big name, which is why when the NDP put forth a half dozen complete fucking duds as potential leaders, they said, well, we're totally fucked if any of these people win. So we're going to make an exception. We're going to put all these women aside. The NDP, the party of equality, of of minority representation, of feminism, is going to allow a man to break the rules to enter the leadership convention to sweep it from all of these otherwise deserving, completely capable, and wonderful, infallible women. And now that he's here, he's not even trying to get a seat. And somebody says, agree. I assume it's with something I said.
Perfectly reasonable expenses. Local teachers union at the Ontario Catholic School Board has called on 4 trustees, including the board's chair, to resign after they spent more than $120,000 in public funds on a trip to Italy this summer to buy religious artwork for a new high school that is being built. The board has faced widespread criticism since revelations last month that 4 trustees, Chair Rick Petrella, Bill Chop, Dan Dignard, and Mark Watson, spent $50,000 for a week-long July trip to northern Italy, where they also purchased $72,000 in artwork, including life-size wooden statues of Saint Padre Pio and the Virgin Mary. In response to an access of information request, the board recently released details of the expenses that included $28,000 in public funds on airfare, $1,600 for a dinner, and $15,900 for hotels in Munich and Italy.
So they needed to go to Italy because they're Catholic, and that's kind of that's their stronghold. But yet they also decided to just stop over for Oktoberfest real quick. They just went to Munich. Like, well, yeah, obviously. I mean, this is all really important. We've got to get all the religious artifacts and also have a few steins of beer. The best part of this, though, is trustees loosened their expenses policy a month before the trip, which allowed them to fly business class or higher if traveling outside North America and if the trip was more than 6 hours. It also allowed for upgraded hotel rooms and, in some situations, alcohol. I mean, if you're a devout Catholic, beyond the communion or the sacrament, I guess, how much alcohol do you really need? You're a devout Catholic. And then to say, like, a month before this trip, they made the exception so that they were able to fly business class or better on this flight. Like, just the entitlement, the bullshit.
It reeks of liberals.
This is culture trickles down. When the prime minister of the country does this shit for years and years and years, everybody else thinks that they should be able to do it too. And he shouldn't, and they shouldn't. I think they're going to be made to pay everything back, though. I think I saw that in the article somewhere, but I'm not going to look it up.
Just another day in Toronto. Toronto police are investigating the kidnapping of the CEO of cryptocurrency company WonderFi Technologies Incorporated, who was allegedly abducted in Toronto on Wednesday and held for ransom. Officers received a call about kidnapping at University Ave and Richmond Street shortly after 6 p.m. and said in a statement, the suspects, whose identities are unknown, forced Dean Skirka into a vehicle and demanded money. He was later found safe and uninjured in Centennial Park, about 23 kilometers west. Mr. Skirka was first identified by the CBC, which reported that a $1 million ransom had been paid electronically. And Mr. Skirka was first identified, which report, oh no, and it read that twice. I don't know. He was paid $1 million to get him out.
This is the kind of thing you hear about in shady parts of Africa, where if you
Downtown
go work
Toronto.
overseas, where you go work overseas for an oil and gas company, and you got security detail, you got a bulletproof car, you got to drive with your light on at night in that car, because it's just standard accepted that in South Sudan, as an example, if anybody's driving with their interior light off at night, it's because they've got guns or bombs or rockets. And so if you see a vehicle with the light off at night, you shoot at it. That's the kind of place that you expect this to happen in. Instead of downtown Toronto at 6 o'clock at night, broad daylight in a city of however many million fuckwads, this country has lost its goddamned mind. $1 million ransom in downtown Toronto in the middle of the day. Somebody says, I use WonderFi. The stock sucks. It started at $3 3 years ago and still can't catch a win during a huge crypto run. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I haven't been following that. I know that Bitcoin hit an all-time high during the election.
Parading over a cliff. As Toronto prepares for the annual Santa Claus parade, that festive jingling sound isn't coming from sleigh bells, but a collection cup. Facing rising costs amid Canada's ongoing affordability crisis, the 120th edition of the parade is in financial hot water, prompting organizers to issue a GoFundMe campaign to help keep the annual tradition on the street. Quoted, in the spirit of togetherness for our 120th anniversary, we're asking anyone who holds a heartfelt memory of the parade to consider donating $2, $12, $120, or any amount they're inspired to give. Their goal is of $250,000 is what they want to raise.
While corporate sponsors make up the bulk of the parade's annual funding, fewer sponsorship dollars and growing costs have put the parade, which endured 2 world wars and the Great Depression, in dire straits. You can get through 2 world wars and a Great Depression, but you can't get through having Olivia Chow as mayor and Justin Trudeau as prime minister and Doug fucking Ford as premier. The other thing, cost cutting has also spelled the end of the parade's annual television broadcast on CTV, leaving a YouTube live stream the only way to catch the parade without bundling up and heading street side. I like Brian. We've had him on the show before, Brian Passafume. I got to push back on this a little bit. A completely redundant and irrelevant streaming, which gets no views because nobody even has cable anymore, being dropped is not a bad thing. If anything, this, by having it on YouTube, you're opening it up for more people to watch. And so I get the fact that from the perspective of we can't afford to do this anymore, it may come across as a bad thing. But I would say in the long run, you're going to be way further ahead than trying to air it in a format no one's going to tune into.
Well, and I don't know. To me, when I read it, I'm like, you see the history, and it pains the guy because I love things that last the test of time.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to start thinking outside the box on how to get people involved with it. And certainly, sitting on this side of the world, I'm like, have you ever turned into the Toronto Santa Claus parade? I don't know.
No.
No. The answer is no. So you got to find creative ways to enlist the city of Toronto. Meanwhile, we just told the story about a guy getting kidnapped downtown Toronto and $1 million going, so like,
I mean, like imagine this parade goes on and those same fucking guys kidnap Santa Claus and ransom him for $1 million. This is the kind of story that I would expect us to be talking about in 3 weeks.
Canadian polls are garbage. Where is the poll? Here it is. I'm going to pull it up.
Well, no. Okay.
Don't pull it up. You don't want me to pull it up?
I want you to go to the news article first.
A majority of Canadians would support making the denial of residential schools and atrocities a criminal offense, according to a new survey.
Okay. And here, I'm just going to show you the article real quick. For those of you listening along, it's a fairly brief blurb. It's maybe a couple hundred words. And it doesn't actually deal with the meat of the poll. It just says that, asked how they would like their MP to vote on the bill, 57% of the survey respondents said they would definitely or probably want their local representative to back the proposal. By comparison, 24% said they would definitely or probably want their MP to vote the bill down. Now, here's where it gets really important. This is the exact wording of the question. Me. Would you want your MP to favor or oppose a bill in the House that would make it a criminal offense to willfully promote hatred against Indigenous people by condoning, denying, justifying, or minimizing the facts about residential schools? Just take a minute to process that question. It actually asks both questions. The correct answer to this technically would be yes.
Yes.
Okay.
No, it is yes. Favor or oppose.
Are you in favor? Are you in favor of this or opposing it? Yes.
Correct.
Okay. And then it doesn't actually talk about what the facts are or anything to do with the facts. It doesn't have anything to do with this whole idea that we can't talk about there's been no bodies found. This is, and it's so charged, willfully promote hatred against Indigenous peoples. Right?
I like
such
why
a shit
I like Wyatt Claypool. I can see him on yours, and he's on mine too.
Oh,
Wyatt Claypool's comment. He said, "This is such a poorly worded question." It's just
they all are, and it's like that on purpose, so that it's all ambiguous and nobody even knows what the fuck they're answering, and they can get whatever answer they want. This is Canadian polls in a nutshell. All right, and then we have our next one.
China. The nexus between science and national security in Canada. The case of the National Microbiology Laboratory in Winnipeg. Of course, this was released at a time when, the U.S. election was going
They
on.
quietly dropped this on election day because nobody was going to be looking at it. Isn't it funny how this always happens? We talk about this every once in a while, Sean. Whenever it's something particularly damning, it gets dropped on a day when no one's going to notice
or on a Friday before a long weekend.
Exactly. So it goes through everything that went wrong with this whole Winnipeg lab leak, which is a conspiracy theory, of course. And that's why they wrote a government report about it, about how there are these Chinese spies working at a Winnipeg lab, and they got busted trying to leave the country with vials of viruses. And when they did leave the country, no one's exactly sure what they did or did not have on them. And then they left there and went to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, where there was a subsequent lab leak, and all of a sudden nobody can go to the fucking movies anymore. So they came out with this list of recommendations. They say things like, in an expeditious manner, and prevent those under investigation for national security breaches from leaving the country. You have to actually go as far to recommend to the government that anybody under investigation for national security breaches should not be allowed to leave the country. You actually had to look at this and come up with that recommendation? How fucking dumb are our bureaucrats? Well, it's not as though somebody specifically recommended that we not let them leave the country. They actually had to write this down, Sean.
At TD, everything is fine. Duh. Toronto Dominion Bank has paid $6.5 million fine for cheating thousands of credit card customers for decades. TD withheld fee rebates worth $71 million.
It's actually almost 72.
It's almost 72.
So they paid a $6.5 million fine,
but got to keep
$72 million.
Correct. Think about that.
Now, if I'm a big business that just recently got fined several $1 billion for money laundering, by the way,
correct,
and then I'm also cheating my, I don't know, what would you even call them? Well,
customer base.
Sure,
yeah,
customers. If I get caught cheating my customers $72 million, and I get fined less than 10 cents on the dollar.
Wouldn't you think the right appropriate reaction would be, you stole $71 million. Not only do you have to pay the $71 million back, but now maybe you have to pay back even more than that too.
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't it be, I don't know, double, triple the fine so that you never do it again?
Put a zero on it.
Just incentivized stealing. It's like,
they did, absolutely. And the other worst part of this is that it's not going back to the people. It's going to our government.
Correct.
And we're gonna use it to buy a bunch of fuel for Stephen Gayballs and Justin Trudeau to fly around the country telling us how bad Alberta is.
I'm pretty sure I just watched Freeland say we gave $5 billion to Ukraine. So like,
okay. All right. Well, there you go. We gave it.
I mean, we're pissing it away. It doesn't even matter. It's just you see that they worth $71 million. They got fined 6.5.
Okay.
I'm not good at math, but that doesn't work. It doesn't even make sense.
So I'm in this tiny, it was either Homer or Kenai. I was up in Alaska and I was in this tiny airport, like the way Fort Mac used to be, but like a tenth of the size of the old Fort Mac airport. Picture that kind of thing. and this thing was old as hell. And there was a sign on the wall that said anyone smoking in this building will be fined. It was like $2.75. That was the fine for smoking in that building. I was like, I should just have a smoke in here. I should just rip a dart right next to that sign and just be like, here's $3. Keep the change.
Have you watched the documentary or the movie? Maybe there's two on
documentaries are movies.
Thank you. I meant it doesn't matter. You know what I meant, you jackass.
Yes.
On Jordan wearing red shoes, the Nike Swiss shoes that were red for the Bulls. That was a fine in the NBA. And they're like, well, how much is the fine? And I forget what the fine is, but they're like, well, let's just pay the fine. Because the fine isn't that bad, and we're going to sell millions upon millions of dollars of these shoes.
Yeah,
so
and
that's what they do
every game.
Yeah, that's what they do. Now you watch the NBA, everybody's got colored shoes, right? Because the fine didn't match, nobody will do it because we'll slap them on the wrist. You watch TD Bank make $71 million and have to pay back 6.5 of that because they broke the rules. Everybody's going to start doing it. Like, I mean,
like, oh, you made several $1 million breaching the Conflict of Interest Act, and your best case scenario is exposure, and your worst case scenario is a $200
Finkelstein's
fine.
going to give us exposure. It's an ethics violation.
Catherine
folks.
Tate, head of the CBC, just got fined $200 for violating the Conflict of Interest Act. Although, to be fair, it seemed like a really minor slip up that she immediately tried to rectify and reported it herself, and they fined her $200. But she did violate the Conflict of Interest Act and was fined $200. That's chump change for these guys. When George Chahal got caught cheating in the fucking election, he got fined, what, $1,000? That $1,000 fine allowed him to have a 4-year job making $180,000 a year. You do that without even questioning it. The comments have fucking blown right up. Or jail. Thanks for these regulations. TD fine going to the U.S. government, though. I think the money laundering one went to the U.S. government. Fire them all and start over. It was TD in the USA. Not sure what's all connected between Canada and U.S. branches. I mean, the name. But yeah, this is insane, and it's just going to keep continuing. Now, Sean, play the Trudeau song.
We like to say people kind, not necessarily mankind.
Yeah.
More inclusive.
There we go. Exactly. Yes, thank you.
And the budget will balance itself. Man,
you are one pathetic loser.
No offense.
I'm going to throw it back at you. Show the video, Twos.
Here we go. This is, for those of you unfamiliar with the guy, this is Justin Trudeau. He's the prime minister of this country.
The Conservative leader just admitted he would not have invested in TMX. He would not have gotten it built. But, Mr. Speaker, on this side of the aisle, we will stand up for Alberta. We will stand up for oil and gas workers across the country because we know that getting overseas markets for oil and gas.
Sorry, just for those of you in the back, listen to this part one more time.
For oil and gas, that getting overseas markets for oil and gas.
Oil and gas
to
overseas
markets. Yes.
He told a half dozen different countries in the past year that there was no market case for natural gas exports. This guy is so fucking full of shit. And yes, of course, Poilievre wouldn't have invested in TMX because he wouldn't have had to. Okay? Now, to be clear, the Conservatives are not a pro-pipeline party. Section 52 of the NEB Act, I can get on that soapbox all day long. But they weren't so anti-pipeline that everybody building a pipeline walked away from it, and the only win that the Liberals could scrounge up was to buy it and have it go unbelievably over budget after they overpaid for it by like 50%, 80% of what it was worth. So he's right. Poilievre wouldn't have bought it because he wouldn't have had to. The private sector would have done it. It would have been up a year fucking sooner at a third of the cost, even if it went ridiculously over budget, without even having to buy it in the first place. But yeah, to say that he supports exporting Canadian oil and gas after he is on the fucking record, and anybody who's been listening to the Mashup for a long time We pointed it out every single time a new country came up that he was not going to allow us to export natural gas to. This guy is so fucking full of shit.
Ooh, that was a little loud. The importance of contract negotiations. Justin Trudeau, sticking on Justin Trudeau, $2 billion funding agreement with Telesat that was supposed to improve high-speed internet across Canada has zero requirements to connect any households with high-speed internet. You can't make that up, folks. I mean, you literally can't. Here, let's pull it up here, and we'll... The bottom.
Read
Part
the bottom.
B. The funding agreement does not include any commitment in regards to the number of households to be connected to high-speed internet, as noted in Part A, and so there are no associated financial penalties in this regard.
We gave them
again?
a multi-billion-dollar deal to get internet, but $billion deal, and I get the fact that in Canada that's worth less and less and less every goddamn day because of these fuckwads. But we gave them a multi-billion-dollar deal to get internet to remote areas in fucking Quebec, and there is no obligation to even connect one of them. They could literally
walk away with $2 billion.
Just take the $2 billion, go to the fucking Caymans, sit on a beach, and every time somebody goes by, I'll take another pina colada. Take it off my tab. Take it off my tab. And they could sit there until they've drank $2 billion worth of pina coladas. And they would still be in fulfillment of this fucking contract.
I don't know what to add to that. I got nothing to add.
If only we had some happy news.
Okay, happy news. Let's pull it up here, shall we? Bingo. This man right here, okay? Texas man who spent 20 years in prison becomes a hero twice over, saving lives and daring rescues. He saved a girl that was drowning, and then later on, he drove by a vehicle that was flipped over on fire, and the man was not breathing, and he resuscitated him. And so there you go. Man who spent his, I don't know, that's pretty cool.
That is very cool. Like, if it keeps happening, I'm going to get suspicious. I mean, how many times do you as a guy who spent 20 years in jail, end up in situations where people are dying and you got to save them? But in all seriousness, you love a good redemption story. And this guy who spent 20 years in jail for burglary, he gets out and just goes around saving people's lives. Good on him. By the way, your ex just quit live streaming?
I know. I don't know what to do. What is that? The ex just hates me right now. That's going to do it. Mashup 132. Community notes, okay? November 13th, we got the Lloydminster City election and school board elections.
Pause real quick. If you have community notes, put them in the comments. Please continue.
If you got community notes going on, put them in the notes. Put them in the comments so Tuz can read them. Yes. So November 13th, it's elections across Saskatchewan, right? Community elections. So here in Lloydminster, we have our city election. We got school board elections. Just had Lise Merle, Chris McGowan, and Charlotte Sebastian on the podcast earlier this week talking about that. And December 8th, Wainwright, Vermilion, Lloydminster, UCP, AGM, and Wainwright at 4 p.m. That's there. November 26th, we have the Mashups live election coverage of Nova Scotia. So I don't know what the heck we're going to do there. We got to work on a little.
Just, if you guys know of any good guests,
yeah.
We, as fun as and as interesting as the two of us are, the election live streams, which have been far surpassing my expectations, both in terms of fun and how well they've been received. We're going to keep this going. Every election, provincial, territorial, and federal in Canada, and then I don't know. We should do some goofy one like.
We'll see.
Liechtenstein. If
we'll see, but
has
we
an
want
election,
we want to make sure that we bring on some locals to cover it, because us two Albertan boys now talking about Nova Scotia, we don't live there, so we want to get some people on the ground. So if you have suggestions, please comment, and would love to hear from you on some suggestions. Kevin Damon has Grandmaster
Great
Flavio.
meeting you this weekend, by the way.
Grandmaster Flavio Bering seminar Sunday in Edmonton. So there's that.
He was telling me all about that. The guy just had a fascinating life.
He's coming on
And-
the podcast too, Tooz.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna no spoilers then, but it's probably gonna be worth listening to. All right. And somebody says watching from Nova Scotia. Okay, well, tell us who we should be. And it's
Who
Facebook
should we be
user.
getting from Nova Scotia?
Although
This-
I think this guy named Matt Dagley, I just kind of stumbled across him the other day. We're gonna reach out to him, and then probably the Raging Dissident and whoever else. So yeah, we'd love to hear what you have to say about that. And I think that's about it for community notes.
All right, Mashup 132 in the books. Folks, thanks for tuning in. Tooz, until next week.
All right, thanks a lot, man.